I'm Miesha Johnston. I am a lifelong experiencer of ET contact, and I also was born into an MKULTRA family. My father was also MKULTRA, and he was my handler and my trauma-based mind control perpetrator, I guess is what you call it. He came from an MKUltra family himself. He came from a mind control family himself. Of course, back in the time when the paperclip came over. So I was born just about the time that they were already here, but he very well was in it. We're a German French background, and his grandmother, he was also Rosicrucian, Mason on one side, Rosicrucian on the other of my family, but my father was a black magician in the Rosicrucians. And not to say that Rosicrucian is bad. I'm not saying that, but I am saying there are sects that do go off from that supposed religious or whatever it is place. Anyway, he's the Rosicrucian, a black magician. That comes into my story a little bit later, but that is also part of why I believe the mind control with him. He had a severe, horrible abuse from all of his stepfathers, which was like 8 stepfathers. His half-brother, and his only other sibling was his half-brother, who also was mind controlled and became Krishna Venta, who was the barefoot prophet. Barefoot prophet is what they called him. I believe it was in San Fernando or the Chino Hills in California. And he had a cult for quite a few years. I think it's like 8 years, that people would give away all their belongings to the church there. And there was also a thing about a lot of women coming and giving all of their belongings. And they followed him as if he was the Christ, which he said he was reincarnation of Jesus Christ. And which I'm not sure if we are from that Magdalene line. I haven't actually done research to find that out. But he thought it was, even in his mind control persona. And then he did that until I believe the CIA was done with the program. I know this was a program from the CIA. I know it. And he was... there was a suicide bomber came in with a briefcase, and all the witnesses said it was a man in a black suit with a briefcase that came in to visit him, and then everybody blew up. So it's mostly just he and the people in his sanctuary died, but it was the end of the cult. So that just gives you a little background about the family. Okay, well, my father was a magician. Then he went on to be a show magician. These things are how CIA and the mind control hide in plain sight. So I believe truly that my father would go out with this magic show, and he took both my oldest siblings, and then the sibling that was 3 of my older siblings, I should say, and one was his assistant, Atina, and the other one was his stage hand. And actually, this guy was a genius. My brother was a genius, and he would build all the props and all the things. And then my little sister, I mean, not my little sister, my in-between sister, she was the contortionist, and then she did her little dance thing and stuff. So they were pretty much a commodity, in my opinion, using the kids. And a lot of time, that was their summer vacation. They had to go on the road with Dad. Sometimes he took them out of school, especially the 2 oldest ones. They never got to really go to high school. The other ones sometimes stayed back. And I believe truly, after reading because I have some of the clippings from the shows he did, there were people like city council people and stuff who tended it, and said they were absolutely phenomenal, and that it was terrifying. It was terrifying because my father, I believe, truly was using some of the mind control techniques within the show. So I will tell you this, that my oldest brother and sister felt he was a monster and they hated him, and there was terrible, 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 terrible abuse. And they ran away at 16 and, no, excuse me, well, 14 and 16. My brother was 14 when he ran away and decided he'd rather live on the railroad and travel on the boxcars. And my sister ran away at 16 as soon as she could get away. She'd ran away once before, but he got her and brought her back. So after that was the end of that program, my project, I believe, when finally he lost all his stage hands and such. And then he turned his attention on me, because at that time I was then being born, and I was 3 years old. And he was he did the trauma-based mind control. And it was, I guess you could call it some sexual in nature, but more in the way that he would use instruments for sexual torture. And they do that so that you can split the personality. And when he was torturing me one day, he said, "I'm so sorry, I have to do this to you, but you have to learn how to be strong. And you have to learn how to, because much worse things will happen to you." And that was at 3 years old. And you have to learn how to leave. You have to go away, is what he said, which was the altar leaving me. So he was splitting the altars, starting then.
Did your father ever apologize for what he did to you?
Yeah, I did. On his deathbed, he did. Okay. I would like to say this about the deathbed thing. So he was dying of horrific cancer and brain cancer. And he was in comatose states, in and out. I knew he'd already been to the other side and realized who he really was. And that he wasn't a monster. Doggone it. And so he said to me, "I'm so sorry I did the things I did to you." And the kids. But I had to give them one, because by that time 5 of the kids in my family had died of very odd different things, very, very odd different things. And he said, if I didn't give them one, they would have killed all the rest. He didn't say that. If I didn't give them at least one, your mother could not have handled losing any more children. So in my heart, though he didn't say that, I believe the system, the CIA, I keep saying CIA, I can't say that, but the ones that did the mind control had killed the kids in different ways. And because none of them, except for one, lived to be past a year. I don't know too much about the Rosicrucians, really. I've done not much research into that, nor Masons, because that was actually, I think, part of my programming was whenever I would go to do any kind of research, I would fall asleep. So I really don't know about the Rosicrucians and how, other than I know of some of the background of their alchemy, and that there were actually well-known black magicians. But on the other side, I was also a Mason. My mother's side was Masons, and her brother was a high 33rd degree and above, actually, and that's where that came in. And I ended up being kind of drafted into the Job's daughters at a young, not too young age. I think I was like 11 or something like that, until I was 14 or 15. Job Daughter International is the Mason, the daughters of the Masons, or that they call it daughters of the Masons, but they are the part, you have the Demalaya, or the young boy, or the boys and the teenagers, and then the Job's daughters, and then you have the Eastern Stars of the wives, and then you have the Masons, and it's the whole program. So.
And how do you think your father was recruited into all this?
He was a Rosicrucian when he was a baby, when he was a child. And his mother was a Rosicrucian, and whatever else. She was a very strange lady, my grandmother. My knowledge now from some hypnotherapy and I had flashes of these things, so I thought it was very important that I find out. I found out at 9 years old I was put into service. Also, Peter told me I was put into service at 9. Peter the Insider. So I, anyway, I was also being programmed. It was my grandmother lived about 6 minutes from the Blackfoot Asylum. And the Blackfoot Asylum is a place that is now kind of in history that they had something like 1,000 unmarked graves that they found there when they did renovation. So it was a horrific place. So that's where a lot of my training and programming went in. And that's where I remember the first dark rooms. And they were like closets. And I would be in there and ask for water, be thirsty, and they threw water in your face. Always buckets of water in your face, which I think is how they first started realizing how advantageous the waterboarding was when they started with children, And children, they can do that because children are so much easier for the splitting of the altar. The other adults will just go absolutely crazy mad. But if you start young enough with the child, their altars, and they'll just get numerous altars, and you can program those altars. And of course, I always use electric shock. I also remember the electric shock at a young age. But so this would be the process. I would be taken for electric shock. Sometimes I would be had the helmet on, which had holographic imagery coming at me. That were horrific things like horrible monsters when I was younger, and as I got older, then it became, slaughters and people murdered, and, snuff films I would imagine I was watching. I don't know for sure, but things that so I'd be to a point where I'd stop crying and stop screaming, and I'd be desensitized to the fact that they could put that helmet on with the thing, and I don't know how they made me always keep my eyes open, but they did, and I have no idea how that is, but they did. So so that was, and then after those processes were done, of course, they also gave drugs, I'm sure, but I don't remember really the drugs. And then I'd be thrown in the room, and if I asked for water, I'd get the bucket, and then if I'd get this little slop of food, whatever it was, shoved at me. So that seemed to go on for hours and days. I don't know for how long. But until I got used to being in the dark, and now I can't sleep any other way but in pitch dark.
Did they strap you down, tie you down?
Only when they were doing the electric shock. And that was with a band around my head. And some kinds of things connected to it. And another time I was tied down, but I was much older, so yeah, that was that for now.
Do you recall them actually waterboarding you?
No.
At some point?
No, the bucket water thing. That's all I ever remember.
What does it mean to be put into service?
That means pedophilia. Now the pedophilia start, and possibly the videos and things like that, but I blocked that out. I don't really remember that. There's two different kinds of ways that I had the sensory deprivation, desensitizations, and things like that in that aspect, and was kind of like a box or a coffin that they put me in as a child, and I'd holler and scream until I got used to it. However, I learned something because my galactic, I was having. All the times I was having these kinds of experience, I was having contact with the ETs from time to time. My tall, white, willowy ones, and I probably think maybe the Bee Gees, which were little furry guys that that were very friendly, and they were. Well, actually, what they were is years later I saw them on Star Wars. They're the Ewoks. That's what they look like. I called them Bee Gees or Baby Bigfoots because I lived in Idaho. The reason I told you that is because my ETs would come to me and telepathically talk to me and calm me down. And then I'd start speaking to them and singing. And I would sing and speak, and that's when I was starting my galactic languages and such. So that kept me sane. And the interesting thing is, they on the other side, and then I could also do it telepathically, right? So they on the other side of the box, who were I'd stop crying and stop screaming. So I think they realized, they thought, well, this wasn't really working very well. Maybe we have to try something else. I don't know. And then the electric shock. But those kind of went on simultaneously. And then, of course, the tanks. The tanks I don't have a whole lot of memory of. I have 2 memories of a tank. The first one was being in the water and in the tank and feeling like I was not there. So I believe it was some of the things, the ways that they wanted us to be able to split our altars. Again, more ways to do that, because I'd just go in the tank, and then after a while, it wouldn't bother me anymore, and I just get peaceful about it, and I just go off to another land. I just go off to another memory, and I could breathe in the water. That's the weird thing about it. I don't remember. The water had a slight color change, but I could breathe. And so I remember that I could sit, and I'd panic for a while, and then all of a sudden I could breathe. Now, later on in my life, I found out how I could do that, because they gave me this liquid, this thick liquid, and that's how they allowed me to breathe. And interestingly, I saw it on a movie, maybe 10 years ago or so, that they're doing this in their training for the frogmen and stuff. They give them some kind of a liquid or something. So they must have had that for a long time. First time I realized I was terrified of dentist chairs is when I went to the first dentist, and I freaked out. And my parents didn't really understand. My mother didn't really understand that, because she was never part of the program. She was put asleep basically about that. But my only memory really is just being in a chair, and sometimes being strapped in. But that, as a child, I don't remember the chair as much. Just being in a chair, and then that's it. Well, I was in a chair always when they put the helmet on me. Always in a chair when they put the helmet on me. So that's the only real strong memory I have. So I have the best way to explain, and that goes into, okay, I have different personas, as you've asked me, and the altars. The first memory I have of knowing I had any altars was during a hypnosis session. And actually, I believe it was with Niar Isley. No, it wasn't with Niar, but that was a later one. But at any rate, I was under, and I was remembering, and I had an 8-month period where I was at a college, and I wasn't in college, but I was at a college checking it out to see about being in that college. And I was standing there with some people in a cafeteria, and this man walked up and said, "Hey, does anybody want to make some money? We have a dream program that you can come into, and if the dream program, you can we just map out your dreams, and that's all we do. We just map out your dreams and watch your dreams, and you get paid for it." So I did, and the next day or so, I remember going into a brownstone building, and then I walked in. There were people in lab coats, and I was taken, to lay down and have this dream thing. And that's the last thing I remember for 8 months. And the next thing I remember, I'm on a bus, driving the bus going back from Seattle. I look at this ticket, it says Seattle, and it has somebody else's last name on it, my first name. And I'm driving, and I go, how in the world did I get here? And riding in the bus, and I started getting flashes, and I had many kinds of flashes. Some were reality flashes, and some were flashes of of a cover story, reality, and then reality, and then a cover story. So I got a reality thing that the cover story was that I was married to a Navy Marine corpsman, and he wanted to get a divorce because his parents said they'd send him through medical school. And so then That's how come I'm on the bus, period. But then on the other side, I'm going, Navy Marine Corpsman, I don't even remember anybody. I don't remember anybody. How? And I'm going, where's his face? Where's this husband's face? I can't find it. I don't know who he is. And so then I had another flash. I was on a bus with some young boys from 11 to 13, and with some women, young women like my age, 17, 18. I wasn't quite 18. And we were going, and there was this big gate, and behind it was a mansion, what I considered a mansion. And now the fake memory, the false, shall we say, the screen memory was saying that I was there to clean mansions with these other people, kids and women. But then the real memory came right in and said, but it's nighttime and there's lights on and there's limousines and it's a party it's a party, and we're taken around to the back of it, entrance that went up a back staircase, and we were the party favors. The girls were put in the third floor to get dressed in gowns and to go down to entertain, because at this time, of course, by then, within that 8-month period of time and this memory that I have, I'm not sure how long the programming of the beta programming, but of course, being put into service, I was already acclimated to the sexual natures of things in my altars, some of my altars, which I will explain my altar. I'll get around to that. So then the boys were kept in the 4th floor, and the sickos would come up there to them. So at that time, I also remember ritual ceremonies within people in robes, sacrifices, and those are also when I was younger too. But so I have a little trouble with my timeline things here. I apologize. So then, okay. So I'm in the head. So I get home to Idaho, and I call my family, and I call my parents, and I have them come pick me up. And they see me and they say, "My God, where have you been? We haven't seen you since you got married." And I said, "Well, that explains the ticket and the different name." And then my mother proceeded to tell me that I had called them in January and said, put an announcement in the paper, I'm getting married. I had only left the house in January, but that blew them away. So I left right after the Christmas holiday. I went to find out about the college, and so in the latter part of January, I contacted them and sent them to put this in announcement about being married to a Navy Marine Corpsman, and nothing about when the wedding was. And then in February, they get an announcement in the mail, supposedly for me, for a wedding for February 19th, I think it was. So I was married to this man I have no memory of. And so they proceeded to tell me that they hated him. They thought he was terrible. My mother didn't like his energy, and my father refused to walk me down the aisle. But I said, that's okay. I don't care. I'll have my friends walk me down the aisle. They're the ones that gave me my wedding dress. So I had just a really flippant, snarky attitude about myself. That they said. And they thought that I was signed kind of like under some kind of drugs or something, because I didn't act like myself. So now, this being said, now I'm going to tell you how I found out the rest of this. So during the regression, she says, why don't you remember your wedding? That's a very special day. Why don't you remember your wedding day? And I was saying, I don't know. And she said, kept on asking me. And then she says, your eyes opened up. She said, they changed your features, kind of, not features changed, but my attitude and my face changed. And you grinned this really terrible grin and said, because it's not her wedding, it's mine. She's asleep like she's supposed to be. And she says, oh, well, who are you? She says, well, I'm Darlene. And she says, well, Darlene, when were you born? Where are you from? And she, well, I'm from Idaho. I was born at, I don't care if they have people on my age. I was born at 52, and that made me 3 years old. She said, well, what you were born in 50, so what do you do? And she says, what's your position, your job, basically? And she says, well, I'm the one that keeps them all alive. I'm the protector. If it wasn't for me, she'd be dead. She wouldn't have been able to survive. She's the weak one. I'm the strong one. And she says, well, what kind of things do you do? And she says, well, I'm the one that has to go through all the training. I'm the one who does the beta training. I'm the one who, so she got really into detail of all the things she did, basically, okay? Including, she was also part of the ritual sacrifice, the ritual ceremonies where the sacrifices, things were taking place. And later on, when I got out of the regression, I started remembering that I had these flashes of me standing in front of a mirror, looking at myself in a wedding dress, freaking out, saying, oh my gosh, help me out, screaming like, let me out, what is happening? But so that's it. So I never did remember his face, never did. Of course, I have my marriage certificate, so I looked him up, and I found out, yes, he was a Navy Marine Corpsman. He was on Facebook. He was a hero. He was his Navy Marine hero, and people had things on there stating what a wonderful, wonderful man he was. They saved his life and stuff in Vietnam War. So, but he died. But he was dead. It was all about his dead. He died. Well, actually, the very interesting thing, I found it the one time in Facebook, and then I could never find it again after I found out he was dead. So they took it down, or they stopped me from seeing it when they knew that I had found it. That's a long story of it.
Is his name Charlie Rose?
Yes, his name's Charlie Rose.
Do you want to cut that out? Is it okay to have that name?
I don't care.
So he's dead now?
He's dead now.
Were you able to reach out to him when he was alive?
No.
Not even a letter?
No.
Email? Or a phone call?
No. I mean, I have a paper from my lawyer when he sent him because we knew he was there. They tracked him down. Or he contacted. I cannot really remember all the details of that, but that was the only correspondence was with my lawyer, and he signed the papers, and that was the end of it. That party was like Eyes Wide Shut. The movie Eyes Wide Shut. People were wearing masks and stuff in that party. And afterwards were the ritual ceremonies, and they were in the underground. It was, it was definitely underground. And there was this ledge. There was a rock ledge, and up on top of it was a lieutenant colonel. Always lieutenant colonels and above. They're the ones that are involved in this. I mean, not all of them, of course. And then there was a draconian next to him actually he had a black hood on, but I could very well see he was definitely a draconian. No idea about it if he had a tail or anything like that, but he was a draconian. And they were overseers, and then there were people in this ceremony, in this ritual, where they were chanting, and then that is really all I remember about that one. Another time I remember where there were other kids, or there were young girls and stuff that were involved. And this time I remember being in places where we were in, I don't know if I was in a cage. I saw cages. At the time, I don't remember myself being in a cage. But I saw people in cages. I saw that there was, and this had to have been after the ferry ride, so it had to have been in Canada, or at least at the Bremerton Island. And I'm still trying to piece that all together. But at that place, there were underground facility that they took us to, and that's where they take some of the people out of the cages, and that's where sacrifices were done. And that's another place where I saw the draconians. And in this place, people, after when they took the sacrifice, which sometimes were children, sometimes babies, and sometimes adults, and they put them on the altar, and there was a big knife involved, and they sacrificed them. And right here at the end of the altar were draconians, and it's just like, maybe it was psychically I could see, but I knew they were taking their adrenaline, that last dying, terrifying energy, and they were sucking it right up into there, and sucking it up because it's a drug to them. So that was one of the events. There were many more. The cages were the kennel size for a pretty, kind of a larger dog, There were people in them that looked human. There were people in them that looked half alien and half human. Now, this particular thing is I have a confusion on my dates and things running together. So I can't tell you if this was at the San Francisco, if this was at Bohemian Grove, because I was also taking a Bohemian Grove in San Francisco, or or the Bremerton base, or what base it was. I can't tell you for sure. It could even have been confusion, and it could be a California base. I am not sure on the dates of that time and why. It's just a memory that has come up. And I haven't done any more regressions on it. In fact, I have this program that says, and I now realized after listening to you, thank you, James Rink, for your wonderful, amazing super soldier talk at the 5D event here in Las Vegas that you gave. It helped trigger me, and that was good, because that helped me understand that it's time to know the rest. And the programming that says you don't need to know the details, that's false programming. So.
Did you notice in the room where they kept the cages, was the walls or maybe the floor green colored?
No, it was an underground cave. There was like, I believe it's a deep underground, military base, because it was rock walls. It was rock walls. And do I remember much in the cages? No, I'm sorry, I don't really remember, other than people. I was so blown away by some of the horrific looking half human, half alien, and half, I didn't notice any bolts or anything. The dream study is a driving program, and what they do is they put you to sleep, so it's part of the programming. So they put you to sleep, and they start programming those altars. This is how they program, in my opinion. They start programming the altars, and that's part of the programming. And so it goes on, and you sleep for days, weeks, maybe even months. In fact, I will tell you, Dr. Cameron from Canada was working with the CIA in this exact program, and what he was doing was implanting things in the people when they were asleep, and he'd keep them asleep. And some people woke up and couldn't even walk, talk, or eat. So you have to be a very strong person with a very strong will. I'd like to take away that myth that people who have altars are weak, because we are not. It is quite actually something that they look for as a stronger person, because if other people would go through the tortures and things that we've gone through, they wouldn't be able to split. They would completely go absolutely mad, which of course they've had a lot of that. And unfortunately, guess those are the people that they use for sacrifices.
Are you familiar with a show called the OA?
I am. Yeah, I'm familiar with the OA show. Yes.
Do you feel there's a lot of resemblance with that in your life?
Oh, with the cages. Oh, interesting. Yes, that is. I believe truly that the OA and the fact that they had these people in the cages, and the people had such amazing abilities, and that these people could actually, they're multidimensional, and they could interface, and they could go and other dimensions, and they were working on the whole death thing and stuff. I think that this show gives an example of the type of programs that are out there. My programming was beta programming, which is the sex slave, and the models. Because if I was in a mansion, I would imagine I was part of, like they call the what do you call it? The president model programs. Because I do remember people being there, and I'm not going to say their names, but they were high up in political and government and stuff. So then I was in the alpha program, which is alpha programming, and how they program you to be a courier for a photogenic memory, photographic memories, and which I now have nothing of. I have no memory left because of all the stuff they've put me through. Then the Delta program. And I don't actually remember. Well, I do. As a child, I remember some of the sacrifices stuff. But as the Delta programming, I don't actually remember killing anyone psychically or physically. But I do remember taking people to the places where they were killed.
Can you comment a little bit more about what Peter the Insider from the ACIO has said about your experience with this dream study and the marriage?
Okay, well, actually, he talked more about the other trip, which was and see, I'm talking Seattle and I'm talking San Francisco, so that's going to really confuse people. So let me tell you that Peter the Insider, not only, the reason I contacted him is I got some closure and some understanding about Seattle when I was the 17, 18-year-old. Okay, but when I came back with my family and I went ahead and got back into my life, I wanted to move out of Idaho. So I moved to Utah. And when I moved to Utah, one morning the phone rang and there was a hum like a fax machine on it. And that's the last thing I remember, again, for 8 months. Now, this time, the next thing I remember is I opened the door and my brother is standing there and I'm in San Francisco, and he said, "My God, we have been looking for you everywhere. You just disappeared. Where have you been? What are you doing here?" And I went, "I don't know." But when I saw my brother, maybe it woke me up or whatever it was. But during that was in San Francisco, and that was the times when much more of the sacrifice things and the rituals and a lot more of the beta program, and that was when that was when the programming was really bumped up and advanced, because there was a madam that I found out now that was teaching and training us exactly how we're supposed to be. And I have a picture that we'll be posting of me sitting in that house where we lived, where all us girls lived in the training program. I was sitting on a bed. I don't know if that was my bed or what. And there's a dog there. I don't know if that was my dog or anything like that. But Peter, the Insider, said, and I should say that also during that memory of, I find out, and what they actually said to me, and I found out in regression, what they actually said to me was, on the phone, that was the tone, and then they said, "Be at Bob's Big Boy tomorrow, packed and ready, and you'll meet him there." And I believe it was Charlie again, I believe. But I went and supposedly I took my car and I drove there. I drove supposedly San Francisco, but on the way to San Francisco, we met some people who were going to the, this is a block in the names. I always have blocks on names. Going into New York to the, can you help me with this? I should have wrote some names down so I could remember. The big event that was...
Woodstock.
Woodstock, thank you. Yes, Woodstock. So, yes, and they were going to Woodstock. Now, how I would weave, supposedly, in this little program that they false memory. They say that we picked up a hitchhikers that were going to Woodstock, and if we were going to San Francisco, it's not on the way. So I know I went to New York, and so I've always wondered what happened in New York, because I have no memory, of course, I've ever been in New York. And Peter, the insider, said that I was at MIT, and that they said that the amazing things that you did there that are in your record here in your file, that you should be making a lot of money for. They should have been sending you checks, are they not? And I went, no, I haven't made any money. And he said, well, you were at MIT for quite some time, and the research and the work that you did there was really, that very important. And he also told me, that I had some other things into me. I'm still trying to come to grips with these other things. He mentioned about altars, I think, and things like that. That's true. That's confirmed. He mentioned about the Monarch solutions, and he told me to look up that. And my probe at that time, I just think that I had some really blocks, and I don't know. I really don't know whether or not it's right or it's wrong. I haven't decided yet.
Were you Darlene during your time at MIT?
That is yes in my head. Yes, in my head. Yeah. I've integrated Darlene, and I've integrated with Charles, and I've integrated with a child. And the way I integrated in as and this is a method that I use in my hypnosis as well, but this wonderful person assisted me with this, and a therapist as well. And so I integrated, because you can find, I'm not going to do the secret, but you can find a certain thing you can do within the hypnosis to make 10 to 20 to 100 altars come up all at the same time in one package, and release them and get rid of them and integrate them. And you can pull in more. So like Darlene has, 14 or so. So we put those in a package and we release them. And it's the same system I use in my hypnosis working with people. So I integrated. And one particular, the last one to integrate was Charles, as in Charlie, my handler. But I had a Charles. And he was the one that actually did all of the... Actually, he did all according to what he was crying and sobbing and talking about, which, so people know that it was me sobbing and crying, that he had done all of the horrific things, in the ritual abuses, in the ritual sacrifices, and the other things. So he cried a lot, not getting a whole lot of information. At some point in my life, I guess I should go in to see if I can retrieve those memories of Charles, to see why he was so upset.
Can you comment a little bit about the picture of you and the dog in San Francisco? How did you get this picture, and was this Darlene as well?
I think it was a mistake. I believe it was a mistake because it was so when my brother packed me up from San Francisco and got me out of there, I ended up moving to California. I mean to where was it? Newport Beach. But it was there in my stuff. It was just there. So I think it was like an oversight. Maybe they didn't think it was important because they already had me so mind controlled. They figured I'd never remember anything. So in Vancouver Island, Victoria, those names, those ring up a bell on me. Also, a hospital was there. Wait a minute, I'm stopping because, that's the Seattle. That's the Seattle, yes. Okay, the memory I have was when it was the Seattle connection, and then, so that would be right. Okay, so, I'm sorry, I just had a little, and it's still going on, so still some little blockages in the things. Okay, so I remember being tied down in the bed. The last thing I remember is, the first thing I remember, I wake up and oh my God, my head's killing me. Unbelievable pain. I can't believe and I tried to open my eyes and I couldn't open them. It was so painful. And then I tried to move and I couldn't move, and I knew I was tied down in bed. And then I listened really quietly because I could hear other people moaning and crying and carrying and screaming, and well, not screaming, but moaning and crying and stuff. So I knew I was in I was in a hospital. I knew that. I could smell the hospital, and the other people were, I'm sure, part of the people in the bus. I know this all had connection to the time with the mansion and the bus ride and all of that. When you have 2 periods of complete missing time, they get mixed up together. So I can't absolutely tell you which one. I know that there was the sacrifice in the underground, it was under the mansion, but then the underground base, I believe, was in San Francisco. That was the situation, was definitely San Francisco. And then one time I remember being flown. I was on a plane, and this is one of the courier things. I was on a plane, and I landed. I was picked up with this big black limo kind of car, taken to this cobblestone area. So I don't know what country this was, but it was cobblestone roads and stuff. And I walked up to this house and I knocked on the door, and I said, and the man opened, and I said, it's a bright sunny day. And he said something else to me. I walked in, and then I gave him all the information I had. The information I had that I was given to him was something about taking over a country. And it was something about we were going to kill the leader, and then we'll put ours in place. And there was names, dates, times. I don't have those anymore, but that was that situation. And that happened many times.
Have you tried to find that mansion on Google Maps or Street View?
No. That's also part of that stuff that is not important in that programming. So, no, I haven't.
Would you like to try to find
I'd
it?
absolutely love it. I've been trying to talk to somebody. In fact, I would say right now, if there is anybody who was at Bohemian Grove in 1968, somewhere between 67 to 69, and who has memories, I'd love them to contact me because I'd like to talk to them, whether they're a Montauk boy or whether they're a Monarch girl. And then also, I'd like anybody who has any information, and I will tell you that one of the Secret Space Program fellows and I have talked. You had him in your show, Ray Hernandez? No, what's his name? No, Sanchez? I can't think of his name.
Tony Rodriguez.
That's him. Thank you. Tony Rodriguez and I did a nice chat, and we were doing a thing, and he was sending me pictures, and he and I know we were at Bohemian Grove at the same time at one of their big strawberry parties. All the Montauk boys were stuck and left on that end, and we were all here. We could never communicate with each other. All the girls were here, and then we were, of course, party favors again. The only memory I have of Bohemian Grove is these cottage type, they were like 3 or 4 stories buildings. That is where they kept the beta slaves. And so after the big ceremonies that they would have, that some of the people have reported on, where they bring they do the with the owl and everything that people have seen. Okay. After those big parties, we are there. We don't go to those. We are there at the cottages, waiting to be the entertain the men. Project Monarch is a mind control program that was brought in by Dr. Mingala and Dr. Brown, who is the one I most had the encounters with, and but but it's one of the many programs that they put together they want to use the women. So they use their abilities, as entertaining sexual abilities. They use them for their psychic abilities. They program them after, of course, this is after they've already split them in their altars. So these are altars that they're doing. So people do not remember these things, okay? So they split them in the altars and they program to do all these different things. So that's Monarch is a program of beta slaves, of the alpha slaves, who are the couriers, and the psychic soldier type, the deltas, or the psychic warriors. I've done remote viewing. I'm not very well at it. I also, after I supposedly was out of all this in one of my times, because I have no memory of my life until 1982. Much at all. Just very little spotty things. But I was going to remote viewing classes as well.
So let's go back to the early beginning. You mentioned in your book about a time that you were put into the woods and they were hunting you. Do you remember that story?
I have a very brief thing about that. It was an island, though. I'm positive it was an island, and I think it was in Vancouver or someplace like that. It may have been San Francisco, because I know there was water. Maybe it wasn't on an island, but I know there was water then. And all I remember is we were all had to be naked, and then they chased us. And the game was that, if we got away, we survived. But if we got caught, they could do whatever they wanted to us, including killing.
How old were you?
17, 18. Well, by then I would have been 18, 19.
Could you tell us about the times military personnel were in your room?
Oh, well, yeah. Melinda, this would have been when Melinda, Leslie, and I were working on a book that we were going to try to just do the whole thing. Now, Melinda, of course, is very much in the Milab and everything. I also am a Milab experiencer. I had lots of Milab contact. I could go on for another hour. But we'd been on Art Bell show, and I read this was in 2000, and I actually started in 1999, and within that year, from 1999 to 2000, January 2000, I'd been in 2 automobile accidents, one with Melinda, very weird stuff. And then I'd had so many people threaten me. I'd had complete strangers come and threaten me. But right after we were on Art Bell's show, not that night, but the very next night, because she stayed over at my house because we were going to be doing a conference together at the UFO Congress. And we woke up the next morning, and my coffee table was broken. She was sleeping on my coffee table, and I came out of the master bedroom and saw my coffee table broken. I said, what happened to my coffee table? Melinda, and she says, I don't know, I didn't do it. I didn't break it. And I said, well, that's weird. It wasn't broken when I went to bed. So anyway, we kind of just it was weird. It was and she left and went back to Laguna Hills, and she was really freaked out, had some weird stuff. So she had regression in Laguna Hills. I had regression I was in San Diego at La Costa. Mine worked out that I woke up. I didn't wake up. Where I woke up was an underground base. But what actually happened to me after some regression to get some more memories, but the only memory I had was, I didn't have any memory whatsoever at all. Just a very sluggish night and stuff. But what happens is they drag me up out of bed. There's 2 guys. They drag me down the condo stairs. They put me in a van. I know that Melinda's next to me, but we're feet to feet, so that feet to head, so we can't talk. And next thing I remember, I'm sitting in a chair at a definite underground base, and there's a lieutenant colonel. Like I said, it's always the lieutenant colonels in the Milabs for me, or generals. He's rocking back and forth and cussing me out, and said, "This is it. You've been warned over and over again. It's over. You are done. There's no more talking. You're going to go back to your hometown and find yourself a husband and get over this, because it's not going to bring you any happiness, which is a term that was used to me at least 3 or 4 times by them in their threatenings. It's not going to bring you any happiness. There's some kind of a program thing. I know it is. Anyway, and he said to let you know how serious we are about this, I want you to meet somebody. And he walked out, and in walked in this draconian. And this is the biggest draconian I'd ever seen. He was a slightly different color. He was a green gold color, lighter green, with gold tones. He had something here, couldn't tell what it was, but something up on his shoulders. And he had a tail. First one I remember really seeing a tail. And he walked over to me. He bent down in my eyes, and he did this. Now, I'd already had this happen to me by other reptilians, this mind thing. So I really thought it was another one of these things. But this time, because where they implant things in your mind, holographic imagery and such. But this time he put this imagery in my mind that I was standing in this white room, and my 2 sons and my daughter-in-law and my grandbaby are there. And here comes men in black uniforms, ninja-like soldiers, or with black uniforms and big bayonets, and they chopped my family up in front of me. And so that was my warning, and to stop. So I decided to stop. And on the way home to tell my family I was stopping, I was ran off the road by a van, an unmarked van. The truck drivers that helped me, because I went up on the other side of the highway and came back down with the freeway and went in the middle and hit a cactus tree. But by the way, this is how my galactics work. There was no cactus tree there. I went back to that area. There's no cactus tree there, but there was this beautiful interdimensional shift where they put my car in the place where a cactus tree was, and then came back to the rally. I don't know how it was done, but it was done. And the people in the truck drivers ran up and said, "Are you okay?" That was crazy, because that van had pulled up and had zipped up and went in between us in the truck lane. And then when you came, he came out and shoved you right off the road. It looked like it was on purpose. They said, it almost looked like it was on purpose. And I said, oh, I didn't go into detail. And I said, yeah, I knew it was on purpose. So that's when I quit. So I did quit for almost 9 years.
Then why did you get back into it?
It's my mission. My groups are my mission. I have to do this. And I have to help people who are going through this, because there's nobody to talk to when you're in this. I have an implant. I had an implant behind this eye. I was used as kind of a double spy agent, because I was an interfacer in the Milabs. When they would abduct me, I could interface with the ETs telepathically and speak their galactic language as well. So they would, I believe I may have had 2 implants. I may have an ET implant and a government implant, because I believe that many times, I know in my heart and soul that when the ETs were watching when the government had me, and the government was watching when the ETs had me, I was sure of it. There were so many situations, and it's one particular one was when I was being tortured for information, and they said, we know, and I'd like to say I met this wonderful, amazing being called Ayano, who is a reptilian from Sirius, who saved my life in a couple of occasions. People can read about this in my book. Okay, so he saved my life, and he came into my life, and he protected me and my family, along with some other ETs, along with some Arcturians, along with some Iargans, along with some willowy white grays. So, but anyway, so they were asking, where is Ayano's base? Where is Ayano's base? Because they had a base here. Because Ayano had told me that the Draconians and his reptilian faction had been fighting for millenniums. So that's why they were here, was part of the underground destroying and the taking, because there were some reptilians who wanted to get away that are in the underground dumbs, that are in the program or whatever you want to call it. They want to get away. They're renegades. They don't want to be in it. So I believe that's what they were there. And then I think the Draconians are wonderfully well known for kidnapping. So I think they were getting some of their kidnapped people back. When I said I'd had a reptilians encounters, okay, one particular one I remember is I'm walking down and this was definitely in a dome. There's polished walls on this side of me, and there's regular walls on this side with rooms and such. Kind of cubicle type rooms, all square. So it's not on a UFO craft. I know what UFO crafts are. I've been on them many times. They have different curvatures. They're softer, they're rounder, their color, their light's different, everything. This was a military base. So I was walking down the hall, and I was having these guys in military uniform pass me. Men and women, I should say, and people in lab coats passed me, and they always looked at me up and down, and this was somewhere when I was in 1980s, late 80s, let's say, and they wouldn't look at him. I mean, they purposely wouldn't look at him. They would look at me, and you could see that they would not look at him, and how come they don't look at you? They're looking at me. Why aren't they looking at you? And he says back to me telepathically, because they know better. They must honor us. So I immediately had because when they communicate with you, they communicate in imagery and thought forms and the whole thing. So you get a very large message here. And the message was, they know better. Because if they do, they have to honor us, and if they do, they go crazy. So at the same time, I'm seeing this imagery of soldiers evidently looked at them because they went mad. One guy went absolutely mad, and another guy was drug off. So he didn't go mad. Evidently, he just glanced and didn't get the eye contact. But they're in control when the level I was in, and you are not allowed to look at them. And then later, I was in a room with him, or it was another one, I don't know for sure, but we could telepathic talk, and I said to him, why are you invading our planet? What do you want with our planet? We've done nothing to you. And he shot that the same energy again with the message and said, we're not the invaders, you are. We were here long before you were. It's just our planet. And then the imagery is, there's this prehistoric scene I'm seeing, and there's dinosaurs, and there's all these prehistoric animals, and they're all running from something. And there's comets coming down all over the sky. And I know from this whole scenario, I'm told that these are weapons that are being used. And this is in one of the extinctions of planet Earth. I know that. Now, there's raptors and some other smaller that go underground. And when they go underground, he shows me how they evolve, and we have evolved now. So we are the rightful owners of this earth. You are the invaders. And so after having those experiences with him, I understood something. Now, I don't think he definitely was, I don't know what he was. I think he's more like a reptoid. But I definitely understood how they might feel if their lineage was here first before us. It is there.
Okay.
Even though we were, genetically kidnapped and stuff ourselves. So the willowy one was my second ET that came in after the Bee Gees. And it was about 5 foot gray. White gray, though. Very, very white. Almost opalescent. He actually had some kind of a shine to his skin. His eyes were smaller than the little short grays, and the little short grays are the ones that would come to me all the time, and as a child and everything, to pick me up. But so I think they were probably maybe like more the workers, the android type ones, the clone type ones or whatever. But the willowy one was with me when I first met Ayano at 16. The willowy one was there through all of my hybridization program. He was part of the geneticist program. He was also with me when he presentations in the nursery. and he was always there. So he was with me for a lot of years. Give you a couple of things, okay? All right, one particular one was I was being shown this holographic imagery about Earth and Earth in destruction. So Earth in ecological destruction. And they said, is this the Earth you'd like to live in? And I says, no, it's not. And so that whole idea is, to change it. Yes, and then the willowy one was with me throughout my entire life and was a very positive being. As I said, he was in the hybridization. He was there during the hybridization program. He also was there when they presented me with my first baby. But after that, it was a female from then on. The first baby was just a little tiny baby that was very tiny and so tiny. When I looked at it, I immediately recognized that it was my baby and had this bonding and mothering feeling about it. And an imagery came in my head from the willowy one and possibly the other one that was standing there that handed me the baby, that this was a very good success. They showed me imagery of other people being presented with a very scrawny looking baby that's not exactly human. Some people got, oh, no, I don't want nothing to do with it. Other, like one man dropped the baby. Oh, that was awful. And then others would just say, I'm not touching it, or run away, or cry, or scream, and stuff like that. So they were very happy that I bonded immediately. And so that made me, from then on, a very good candidate for the hybrid program. So that was very soon after that I met Ayano. With the willowy one, I went to bed one night and woke up. I was out in the desert kind of area. Behind me, I could feel energy. I could feel tall. I could just feel somebody tall in my psychic senses. And once on board ship, and the ship was above me. It was very, very close. And I could see these rotating kind of energy things underneath it. And then once on the ship, I woke up on the table and there was some gynecological thing going on, examinations with the little gray guys, which kind of freaked me out, which I was 16 and very, very naive. And the willowy one leaned over like this into my face and looked in my eyes and said, everything is okay. We're not here to hurt you. This is necessary for the hybrid program. Well, at that time, I had no idea what the hybrid program was. But then, in the distance, was possibly people who were working with him or in control. I wasn't sure. They were in the shadows. Actually had hoods on. And I said, I know you. I feel your energy, that you in the middle. I'm a kind of a little, I think it's more telepathic communication with him, but I think I might have been verbally speaking, it felt like. And I said, I know you. And one stepped out, dropped his hood, and that was Ayano. And from then on, I had some encounters a little bit here and there with Ayano. And I found out through hypnosis, and once from him also, that I'd had many lives with him. And that one was a human. Another one, I was the ambassador responsible for what was going on. And I was, I don't know. I felt like I was an ambassador, but I also was his superior. So I don't know what that meant. And another time we were on a planet and we were attacked by draconians. And we tried to flee, but we didn't have time. So the ships were getting shot down and stuff, so we didn't have time. So we died. And then another time I was a human with him. So we have a long history. And so he's here to protect me. The council actually sent him. The ship that I was on when I was the 16 was a darker ship. It had darker lighting. I was right where I was, but out in the distance, it looked like a huge ship to me, really big. But at the distance where I saw them, there was more very subdued, darker lighting, kind of a blue to a gray color, blue-gray color of lighting. Now, other ships I've been on, when you walk on the floor, it feels cushiony, like earplugs, the foam or earplugs. It's really cushiony. It's not carpet, but some kind of a cushion. The walls are all, very spherical. They're very, very soft, round edges. The lighting comes from everywhere, like the floor and the walls and the ceilings. I could see tables, where people were on, and equipment just like there'd be a wall, and then next thing you know, there's the instruments would just come out of the wall. The chairs would be nowhere, and then all of a sudden they would be there. So they came out of the floor. It's like everything. So if you was to walk in, sometimes I walk in, it would look like just a big empty area, but then other times I'd see all these things. I was also on board during school, is what I kind of call it. They were teaching me. That's when they were teaching me the galactic language more, communications, the interfacing, the psychic abilities as a child. So that's why I believe that I survived the Monarch program, because of my help with the galactic and my family and Ayano and the other ETs. If it hadn't been for them, I would never had any kind of happiness, because they were my happiness. I didn't think my parents loved me. When I was in school on board the ships, we were learning, and we were and I was told later on, just about 5 years ago, that we are to be the ambassadors in the future, to be the translators, and to be in the future when the time of great change comes. And when they told me that, I saw me standing beside an ET translating to a president or somebody like that, So many of us are being called to do this. Many, many. And in fact, that is so important to me, and there's a download that they've given me of that importance of it, that I now teach galactic light language. Now, this is just if people are already getting the feeling of the galactic language, I help them go ahead and learn why they have it, the translations, how they can translate it, and I just give a class about that on the internet, I should say. I'm starting up another one in May. So if somebody wants to contact me, they can contact me through Starseed Awakening ET Experiencer Group. The Galactic Consortium is, I've come to understand that I know they're the ones that I communicate with in the Galactic group. They come in, and there's many groups many of them that would come in this group that would all speak in different languages, completely different dialects. I could actually probably give you a couple of them should you'd like at the end of this interview. But when I was taken up, when I was kind of ready to just kind of give up on this planet completely, because of all the things, and I told you about the accidents and all that back in the 2000, I was taken in front of what I believe is the consortium, and they were there in front of me, and because I've recognized some of them coming forward now. When they speak galactic language to me. But the consortium, when I went there, I said, I'm done. I want to get off this planet. Please let me off. And they said, beloved, remember you asked for this mission, and you must complete your mission. And so I whined some more, and they talked amongst them. And it was interesting because every chair that when they were talking and stuff, I felt this energy around them. Maybe I saw the oars or whatever, but I knew who was talking by their energy. And anyway, so then they said, but we can help you cancel your contracts. So I canceled my contracts with the government. And I canceled my contracts with everything. Not realizing that I get no more do I get to go on board the ship, because I canceled that contract. So I've not been on a ship since then. But my ETs do come, but I can't see them. They're in another kind of dimension. Other people see them in my house, but I can't see them, including Ayano. And then I've had a little girl I was presented with, and then I have a little green fellow that when I asked, I said, who's the father? And they said, well, you call him Ayano and the All. And I knew from them telling me that Ayano All means Ayano and other types of genetics as well. And then, of course, I've had a hybrid well, I went into the nursery once. I was taken to the nursery once, and I saw all these children, all different ages, from little toddlers up to young adults. And I said, which ones are mine? Or which one is mine? Which one is mine? And they said, they all are. So that was like 17 or so. So I'm somewhere around 17 children. And let me see, one other thing I wanted to say about that, but now I can't remember. Oh, yes. I've also been in the hybrid program on an underground basis. And I know for a fact I have a strong connection to the super soldiers. I can't say I know that for a fact, but I'm going to find out. Actually, Peter said something about my hybridization stuff, I think, too. But I'm not really, I got to listen to it again and remember. But I saw hybrid children on an underground. I mean, I remember being given birth to them. I also remember youth ones. I also remember one that was kind of a reptilian type. I've also seen stuff that looked like raptors, and they were all supposedly part of my genetics. And like I said, I'm going to find out about it because I really feel fondly to these super soldiers. I really like they're my kids, or some part of me anyway. And in 1991, I started the UFO Contact Center International. Actually, it was already going. I was just the local division here, and then I started support groups, and that was from the Galactics telling me. They were telling me and asked me to start the groups. I get a lot of downloads and stuff from my Galactics, and they also told me that it was really important for people to know that the genealogy on off planet is just as important as their genealogy on planet. So some years ago, they had me put together a chart. Now it's a little different than this one because this is the upgraded version, but it has different planetary groups on it. And then of course, this time they said it was very important that people get to visually see. There we go. Is that better? People get to visually see the types of ETs that are here. There's many different types of reptilians, the Fomalhaut, the Argons, the Carian bird people, and some kind of a blue alien-looking being as well. Different Apollonians, the Anunnaki, and so it also gives information. So they felt that it is very important that people understand that their galactic genealogy is extremely important and is part of their life, and it's part of their connection to their galactic family. So, of course, I wrote a book about my experiences. Oh, I gave that book away. I don't have the other one. And I have a book about my MyLab experiences, and I have this book, They Weren't Butterflies, about my Monarch, some MyLab, Monarch, and all of my AT stuff is in there. I went together with Tana Newberry, and we developed these cards for reading, wonderful reading. So when I do galactic light sessions and activation sessions, I use the cards and the galactic chart. The next event I'm going to be on is the UFO cruise, which many, many, many people are going to be there. I'm going to be doing a speaking and a workshop. I'm also going to be doing night vision star watches on the deck. And should you want to go to this event, please go to ufocruise.com and put in code STAR99, and that gives you a free reading when you're on board the ship from me. So and then, of course, I do night vision tours here in Las Vegas through Airbnb. Whoops, we broke them. Through Airbnb, my night vision tours. I do them here in Las Vegas for Airbnb experiences. And then anybody else, they can just go to my website, which is Vector 5 Tours. And then Tana and I go to Hawaii and do the night vision tours there in Hawaii. And we'll be doing that in June and July. My website is starseedawakening.org, and of course, like I said, it's UFO Vector 5 Tours starcityawakening.com. I have groups on Facebook that you can go to: Starseed Awakening ET Experiencer, Starseed Awakening Group, and MKULTRA DID Super Soldier Secret Space Program. You can also find it that way. Those are private groups. I also have the Internet Zoom live virtual groups, and you can find those through Facebook or through my website, and those are every Wednesday and every Sunday, and there are live free virtual groups for everyone. So please come and join me. I do hypnotherapy. I specialize in trauma release hypnosis and starseed ET contacts, and I really work a lot with people who've gone through what I've gone through, because I know how much it means to have someone there who believes in you and can help you integrate.
Do you wish the people could pay for what they did to you?
Oh, no, actually what I'd like them to do is be honest and tell the truth and for it to come out. But I think that they owe us a lot. They've done a lot to ruin our lives and keep us down. And it's really time that, they just come out with it and be honest and truthful. But I know that's not going to happen. Not in this reality.
Thank you, Miesha.
Thank you.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.